Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm just going to start with a short comment on what Dorte just mentioned, because it's not in my presentation. I think this referred to Paul's figure of 25 billion euros for the French geological disposal, and I just want to clarify that this figure of 25 billion euros is neither EDF's estimate, which is lower than that, nor Andra's estimate, which is higher than that. It's the figure that was published by a government decree. And the comment I was making to Dorte is that maybe we are, in France, the only country where a minister can decide by a decree of the cost of a project which is going to start in 2050 and last for at least 1 century. So I'm going to give you some overview of the French situation when it comes to decommissioning, and I just want to emphasize, to start with, the situation of the nuclear industry in France. As you know, we are probably the most nuclearized country in the world when it comes to the number of reactors compared to the population and the share of nuclear power in electricity, more than 75%, which means that we have both a lot of nuclear facilities, nuclear power plants that have been shut down and are being decommissioned, and also, of course, even more operating facilities, 58 reactors, 100 construction, and very large fuel cycle facilities for enrichment, fuel fabrication, and reprocessing, plus also a large number of research facilities, nuclear research reactors, and so on. Which means that when you take all that together, it's both of decommissioning and a major stake, of course, when it comes to decommissioning policy, especially in European perspective. I also want to stress, beyond the industrial situation, the financial one. Paul Dorfman already touched upon it, but well, it's no news. It was big news in unfolding in the past couple of years, but it's no news today that Areva is technically bankrupt and EDF faces huge financial stress. I don't comment the 2015 results. High debt, low revenue, big losses, very low value on stock markets. Altogether, that results in current plans by the French government of rescuing Areva and the fuel cycle branch of Areva. We are talking of 5 billion euros there. We are talking of 4 billion euros of increase of the capital of EDF. And on top of that, EDF is set to buy the reactors branch of Areva for 2.5 billion euros. So there is big money and big talks going on, which means that the liabilities for long-term costs, especially those for decommissioning, which for a long time were not on the agenda, are now a big issue when it comes to those commercial negotiations. For a long time it was not on the agenda simply because everyone and most decision players and most decision makers and most stakeholders just lived with the idea that the industry is there forever, the program is going to go on, and even if we are wrong on long-term costs, new income will pay for that. So no big political issue. And this has dramatically changed in the past couple of years. So I'm now going to try to give you a very brief summary of past and current experience with decommissioning in France, which is really a bitter experience with one reactor, for instance, Brennilis, and I think someone from the Local Information Commission of Brennilis is on the next panel. 18 years of operation for this heavy water reactor, 47 years, that the current plan for decommissioning, and the last official estimate, which was made more than 10 years ago, was already 20 times the initial forecasts by the government in 20 years earlier. We have a big issue also now with the uranium, natural uranium graphite gas reactors, UNGG, which are under decommissioning. And the issue is that one technical option was chosen by EDF, was submitted to public inquiry, was agreed by the French Nuclear Safety Authority long ago. And then last year, EDF unilaterally and very bluntly said it has to change the technical option. It doesn't work anymore, so they have to change the plans. And the consequence is that the decommissioning, which was already a very long process. I mean, the completion was scheduled for around 2040. The decommissioning completion is postponed according to this decision, which is not, of course, agreed by ASN, would be postponed until early 22nd century, which is, of course, unacceptable, especially in France, where we have in the law a principle that decommissioning should happen and be completed as soon as possible. We have other examples like Superphénix with huge cost and still rising. And I also want to stress the situation of reprocessing plants. We have an old one in Marcoule and a small part of the reprocessing plant in La Hague, UP2400, which are being decommissioned with huge costs, and we are talking of billions, and the story is only beginning there. So altogether, the industry has failed to demonstrate industrial capacity. I started to work on those issues in 1992, 1993. I was a student and working on information and decommissioning. And the industry at that time was saying that with Brennelis, we were ending the research and development phase of French decommissioning, and we were starting the industrial one. And you're going to see how it works. This is where we are more than 20 years later. Brennelis has failed, and other projects are experiences very heavy technical problems. There are specific waste management issues, and there are delays and costs which really seem far from under control. When it comes to operating facilities, I said it's a big stake for Europe. I mean, we are talking of 58 reactors, which represent 45% of reactors, of European reactors in terms of units, and more than half European Union's nuclear capacity. And if we look at the aging of those reactors, we are facing a wall of decisions to be made in the next 15 years. The two lines here, I mean, each line on this graph represents the operation of each of the 58 reactors, and the end of the line is the time when the fourth safety reassessment is planned to happen, and this is when a decision is supposed to be made on shutting down the reactor or extending its lifetime. So you see that this decision for the 58 reactors comes in a very short time, which means that EDF faces huge spending, whether it's in investing for extension or decommissioning, and this is far, far from EDF's current financial capacity. in front of this wall of decommissioning costs, EDF's estimate, as Paul Dorfman already said, is a very low one. It's based on a detailed study that was made on the Dampierre power plant for 4 reactors, and it comes to 309 euros per kilowatt decommissioning cost. This is the lowest in the range of costs which the European Commission gathered in pink, which goes from 300 to 2,700 euros per kilowatt. The EDF's overall estimate, somewhere between 22 and 23 billion euros, and that includes reactors that are shut down and the 58 operating, is increasingly criticized for being 2 to 3-fold too low. This means, but we might come back to that in the discussion, that the provision scheme is insufficient to cover all the costs in the end. Again, I want to say make a short comment on other facilities, and especially reprocessing facilities. Remember, we are talking of 5 billion euros for UP1. The costs will be much more for La Hague facilities, and these costs are not included in the figures of the pink paper, which only covers for reactors, French reactors. And finally, I just want to give you the conclusions and main recommendations of the parliamentary report that was released in the middle of last week. And I think it's important to stress that that is also a sign of times changing, that from the beginning and up to the last day, as Paul Dorfman said, this parliamentary work very much relied on input from independent experts and from critical views, which can be seen, of course, in the conclusions. It says that decommissioning will last longer than planned. The risk is high that operators seek for postponing operation. Technical uncertainty remains very high. Optimistic assumptions made by EDF won't materialize, and therefore EDF's provision are insufficient, and there are no financial security margins. And the main recommendations are that the cost estimates should be reviewed, the methodology should be adapted, including assessment on a reactor per reactor basis, to establish a clear schedule for planned final shutdown, because nowadays EDF is just keeping it really blurred, and also to set up for competition on decommissioning as a way, maybe in the French context, to accelerate implementation.